What's up, everybody? It's Alistair, and here on Headspace, next we're gonna do Miss Marvel. I thought since it was Christmas and it's the time for families and friends, and in lieu of the second season about to come out, there's whispers from the shadows that the second season is in works, and so I decided to put my own opinions into the mix for Miss Marvel. As my taste for things develop, I'm finding that I really like the things that are not for me, really. I mean, it's for the genre, and so I'm gonna watch it. Comic book, superhero, I'm there. But as far as my demographic goes, it's supposedly not for me, but all that stuff's like my favorite. She-Hulk, a lot of women-led things, and it's a chance to learn and grow anyway, so here we are. And it's just a cute thing that's out anyway, like, it really finally matches the Disney brand for, at least for like Wizards of Waverly Place and Zack and Cody and all that. It's not so much a kid-ran sitcom or play or musical, but it's at least like on brand for the rules of Disney, if such a thing exists. It's not so adult, it's kind of cutesy and romanticizing a lot of like things, and it's not so actiony. They get to say a lot of things certain adults really can't say without like feeling like a little different or mocked about it. At least if you were like roll up on a stranger and strike up a conversation, it's like, oh, are you talking about us, me, like the openness of the adult world like comes in a little bit, and it's not as narrow and free as it seems, even though most people that age are like trying to get freedom and go another direction. You can see them like basking in this established world. Like, it could be a lot different, but how they are, it's very colorful. Kind of getting right to it, where we're shown Kamala's life and everything she does, and like other people's adjoining lives. Obviously, it's a little bit of a caricature, so there's like a bunch of like empty spaces and time lapses they're not gonna like mention, but it's comparable to like most people. Just so you go right in, it's like, oh, okay, like they're about like this person, or they're about like me when I was this age, or like whatever it was that happened. There was at least one thing where he's like, oh yeah. It's kind of like a duh, but like, well, just the way that they ordered it and how it's presented, it's very, very on the nose. And it's like not bad at all. I moved from wondering about who this character could be like, or how I'm like the character too, like pretty much the director and the team that puts this together. Sometimes I'm not even like trying to, but then like I'm like in that mind frame. I accidentally skip like a lot of things. I'm like talking about like the background work. This team's like, it seems like there's like more action on like the visuals and stuff. Like the script's like pretty standard, but it doesn't not like hit. It doesn't seem like anyone's really practicing. Everyone's like giving it a very calm 100%. no sense of frantic deadlines or pandering to anybody. It was pretty great. Although it kind of has that feel like to where it's all pretty professional, but I'm sure there's like a lot of people that like they didn't really know each other, but they're like working together, so they like got to know each other. And a lot of people do it, but like they got it all together to where like you can, unless you're like in every scene, you could stop and wait and watch it with your family because you have not seen the finished product, or your friends and family. There'll be times where there's like a year or 2 years later where they finally got like a good moment to finally watch the thing. And you could be like, oh, this is really good, like, even though you're like in it. And, like, they're doing stuff like that, so they gotta, like, have, like, something to, like, cherish. So, it's like, oh, like, I won't watch it until you watch it, so get ready when you're back from vacation or back from work. You'd have to imagine, like, being on the other side of the camera, you're like, oh, this is gonna happen. It's like, oh, just don't tell me, just tell me what to do. Like, I want to actually watch the thing I'm in and say it's awesome, but it's not gonna be the same, obviously, because I'm saying it as the person that's in it. It's just like a personal choice. Obviously, they gotta do like interviews and stuff for it, so like if they don't watch it, like there's nothing to spoil really. It's like there's all these like great sages like combing through like everything just to be like, so they could like reverse engineer like a spoiler or something, or just like it's like, here's the moment, here's the highest lowest moment before their success skyrocketed. That was too much of a deep dive in, but it is what it is. I jumped like 4 or 5 circles in. But to step it back, it was pretty cool. The comic book run was recent enough to where you knew it enough if you read it all, but it wasn't like cemented in your head or giving you like flashbacks like every time you saw something like slightly related. I mean, that's how the comics were supposed to be. Like, I thought personally. You read it, and then after a while, like there's something else maybe related, and then you think back to the thing that you read, kind of like defining the character for you, and things that you remember, and they further get plugged into your brain as Miss Marvel or Spider-Man. For all of that to further depict a world around you that Miss Marvel's in. And speaking of the worlds from the comics, I probably have like 3 or 4 favorite scenes inspired by the comics. The first being probably the Karachi scenes. There are probably 1 and 2 on there. The first ones being the flashbacks with the grandmother. I like how the Trail of Stars line really paid off. It could have been like a whole like mini movie itself. It flowed very nicely, even though the fact that it was like very like abridged. Like they brought some Pakistani like film people around to help or actually direct those scenes. I was like really into it, like right when those episodes came out. Not that I wasn't before, but I was like really absorbed into it. It showed like another place, another time. and it like did not disappoint. Just with the star scene again, like it's like, oh yeah, it is like all very well put together at that point, you could say. Then my second favorite is the Red Dagger part of Karachi. Again, there was just like a little thing that was like mentioned, but now there's like a little like Red Dagger Society for the protector of the Noor and the whole like energy overlap dimension thing. Sounds pretty cool because it could be like for magic reference. Like they could bring in Doctor Strange, or but it reminds me of uh, Doctor Strange too, like where they like draw power from the Vishanti and everything. But it's the Jinn, which is another, I'm sure, mythical thing for the genies. They have Thor and Zeus, so they're gonna put into like the wealth of the culture of Marvel. They only kind of like brush against it, so it's kind of like, oh well, I don't know if it's gonna be like a dimension of genies, but I'm sure it would be like kind of cool because they have it's on Disney and they have Jafar over there too. So I mean, just to discuss the diversity thing for a little bit, but they did have all the Disney princesses and stuff, so if they were continuing, or at least jumping on the idea of that. But yeah, oh yeah, the Red Daggers, they had that base, they had a mentor, and I couldn't say like for definitely, but like they're very tight alley scenes with all the street vendors and all this stuff happening in the background. It really reminded me of these kung fu films I used to like religiously watch. And that time in film when like a lot of those were coming out, and you could just like watch like so many of these like through the week. I'm sure like there was like a stunt coordinator that was like, like I could have done it like the kung fu thing, like, and then the older Red Dagger guy like dies like on the balcony. Him dying wasn't funny, but the fact that it was just kind of like, where'd all the people go? But I guess it just could have been like that one of those like busy spots where she was before. But I guess out of my expectations, I was expecting like random street person A to like be like, oh my gosh, like and like remark about the body. That's just me nitpicking at something kind of random there. And the third one on the list from the scenes kind of from the comics would be the ones from the beginning. For some reason, I felt like it was kind of like Dr. Parnassus. The Imaginarium of Dr. Parnassus, or Mr. Megorium's Wonder Emporium. Especially like a little later, like when like the little platforms start showing up when she's starting to learn her powers. It kind of seemed like they could have been like butterflies or something, like leading her away, or a fairy. It's like kind of busy, but it's not like taking away from like, anything really. Like you can have the option of paying attention to this a little bit, or paying attention to that, but it won't like keep you long enough to where you fully get distracted and lose some part of the story. It's like busy, it's like boom, there's like all these colors. It's like this colorful scene in the middle of there. You could almost see it like sparkling in like Kamala's eyes. Like all the stuff, like she's like noticing and how shiny everything is to her. Especially at the the superhero convention thing for the Miss Marvel costume contest. And then eventually she's like looking at her glittering hand, looking at the bangle or something like that. There's all these like, where she's like, oh, well, I've always noticed, and now I've got this. And she's like, bloop, 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 platform, giant hand. And they have all these like fun close-ups with her in it. Neither fun to shoot or fun to see or a fun transition. I know this is like about her character. Like, there's bound to be like close-ups, but there's like a lot of these ones where it's just her. Almost like it's a school photographer is like, oh yeah, this will be a good headshot for your parents. And this one's like, ooh, like, oh man, they'll be glad I took this. They aren't gonna miss anything. It's like zoom in, zoom out, get a little too close. It's like I'm right next to you. Get like way too much detail into the shot. The camera guy at the beginning was like having a lot of fun there, the camera lady. And my fourth overall thing that was kind of from the comics, and let me get this straight for you. I don't know if it was like the fact that I read it like hungry Miss Marvel a lot, but I'm sad to like they barely only a little bit put in about the samosas. Like, it was in there, but there was, like, not a very big emphasis on it. Like, there's a few times in the comics where, like, she specifically brings food, or there's, like, some panels about food. Those things are good. If you get a chance to order a samosa, just do it. To make this completely about food, they're delicious. Veggie or lamb or otherwise, just do yourself a favor. Like, if they could put like more scenes about food and just ruin it, like, I wouldn't mind. But the comics do, like, it really popped out to me like every time that she's like, oh yeah, like they're sleeping over, and can you like make those like the veggie samosas or whatever, dude? She at least does give Bruno, like, at the very beginning, like, a little tub of food. And then, finally, number 5 of my favorite things I saw, Miss Marvel's powers, which was a pretty cool change, I thought. Like, all, like, their additions were, like, a lot better. Like, most of the things like I heard were like, oh, like it was probably easier than trying to make it stretching look better, but and without trying to make this like a science podcast, it's like it's pretty like accurate, at least like according to like certain things happening under like a microscope. If you were to magnify like everything happening under a microscope for like, if you were to turn something into a powder chemically and be able to witness the whole process all on the, I guess, quantum scale, does something that kind of like follows. And to make it all sound super fancy, like if you were to evacuate the mass, there'd be like some like particle stuff happening, leaving behind like a little byproduct of like those little platforms and crystals she has. It could be a case that every time she does it, it was like something that went through a wormhole like at any point, and the Nor was the part where it collected all that light and the physical sensation of it being solid, but not the mass of the solid. But that's basically what's happening when you're like touching the sour dust to your tongue. It's like it feels like it's like moving up space onto your palate. Like you could make the comparison like how she's doing it, but it's like way bigger, and people watching it like overusing this microscope to see like the citric acid or whatever on someone's tongue. It's almost like a funny like comparison, but like something on the microscopic scale can be like applied to the macroscopic scale, like depending on what it is. But apparently it looks like sour crystals and wormholes, apparently, or like maybe like little portals that she can control. So when she's like turns into Captain Marvel later, it's like, oh wow, like they really like did all this like personification for like her powers. That's the dorkiest I'll go, if that was even like understandable without like reading my mind or like me drawing a bunch of little pictures. I really like the platform things anyway. Like I'm sure there's be like some cool like art, or it would at least kind of feel cool jumping along those. And the fact that they like made a point that she like runs through the streets and sees them, but her in the comics, she was like embiggened, and she's just kind of like slurping, like slinking through the streets. At first, she's like on the rooftops, but then she's kind of like, whatever, and she's just kind of like walking down the streets, like, hey, like saying hi to everybody, like. Yeah, that's my Miss Marvel rundown, at least for right now. Like, just spreading some Marvel cheer for Christmas, getting ready for the second season and New Year. We'll have it in between our Andor reviews. Happy holidays and Happy New Year. Smash that like button and subscribe. Leave a comment about like what you want in the next season. And thanks for joining me, everybody. Would it be weird if they like mentioned Jafar in it? Bye.